Ladies, welcome to Real Talk with Pam. It's great to have you here, Ajobi and Shola. Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
show.
Nice to be
Thank you.
here. Thanks for the
Fantastic.
invite.
So let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking, as you know, about life after divorce. We are three women here who has experienced divorce, and I really would love for this conversation to be candid because I know that there are many women out there who are going through this, and sometimes they don't have the confidence to talk about it because it can be a really painful topic, a painful life experience. Obviously, it's a challenging time. When you get married, you don't want to, you're not getting married to get divorced, obviously. And it's almost like when you get divorced, you're losing a part of yourself because even scripturally it says, when you get married, you become one. And so when you do get divorced, you're literally having to pull apart that oneness. What were the challenges that you faced during that period, and how have you been able to get on the path of healing?
Okay, for me, it was, I think my situation is a bit unique in that I had married as a virgin and, it just, and then I was a bit of an agony aunt to a lot of people.
Right.
So it was the last thing I thought would ever happen would be that I'd be married and then later labeled a divorcee.
Right.
So for me, it was traumatic. I mean, it was the relationship lasted like just 3 months, but it was the damaging effect of it was something I took into the next maybe 17 years.
Wow.
It was traumatic for me. It was basically traumatic. That's the best way I can describe it. So what would I say? A lot of prayers. I think people were praying for me, my mom, my siblings, and it got to a point where even I knew that okay, I've got to snap out of this thing. I have to snap out of it. It took me 5 years to begin to feel a semblance of what I used to. I always tell people you don't go through divorce and remain the same, and that's the truth. For me, I went through it and sort of came out a different person to an extent. My temperament changed, my outlook to life changed. A lot of things changed about me. So going through it, I think one of the first things I stopped doing was to talk about it. I mean, at one point I was telling everyone, "Oh, oh," and then one day it just occurred to me, I'm going to stop talking about it. I want to just leave it and then come to accept it. I've said that acceptance is I think we underrate the essence of acceptance in life generally. For me, I couldn't believe I'm this divorced. I was married and now I'm divorced. I'm a divorcee.
Right.
That bothered me, but then it got to a point where I had to accept that, okay, this is you now. This is your life. In fact, I refer to myself as pre-divorce and post-divorce surgery.
Right.
So I think I came to accept that, okay, this is my life now. And this is me. I now have to like re re
Calibrate.
recalibrate and then find this new post divorce Ajobi.
And Ajobi, when you said it was traumatic, can you just share, if you don't mind, what was traumatic about it? I mean, obviously, I'm sure there are many things, but you can share a couple of things.
Okay, maybe the first thing I should say is that I was really naive.
Right.
I was naive. I think I grew up a bit sheltered and had no street wisdom or godly wisdom, I call it now. There were lots of things I didn't know. And so it was almost like I was thrown into, and before divorce, I used to say the worst thing that ever happened to me was losing my dad.
Right.
That was the most traumatic thing I ever experienced. Before then, my life was just, I was okay. And so here I am thrown into this emotionally traumatic situation. It was emotionally traumatic for me because I don't know any divorced person in my family.
Right.
And in my case, I was Christian, and I knew what God's view of divorce was, or the way the church portrayed it anyway at the time. And so I went through condemnation because I was the one who wanted out. I didn't like the stigma. I didn't like the label. It was a problem for me. And then I'm thinking, I kept myself for all this time. I was 30 when I got married. I kept myself all this time, and I can't believe I missed it. How did I miss it? People used to come to me with their relationships. My siblings are married, and we would talk about it, and we share, and I was a blessing to people. And people are like, I can't believe it. You of all people, you of all. So all of that, and then just I went to a place in my head that I honestly would never be able to articulate.
Sure.
So
Out of it now, which is fantastic.
it's good.
Yes. Shola, you want to share?
Yeah, for me, I think it's a different scenario in the sense that it was a long time coming. It took me about 16 years to get to that stage where I had say I want out. But it was the first year of getting married that I knew that we weren't meant to be together. However, because of the stigma, how society felt about divorcee, how your parents, my mom used to say, "Kill your muscle," which means what are people going to say? And we carry a lot of what other people are going to, we let other people determine our lives for us. So a lot of people literally stay in a rut and they can forge ahead by moving forward and saying, I've had enough. I was a Christian then. I had a lot of issues about what would the church also say? How would they view you? And there was a lot of debate about, I literally listened to every tape on divorce and what the church said. And it was when I got to the realization that God does not hate it's divorce, but does not hate the individual itself.
Right.
That I had that acceptance to let go and say, yes, this is not working again. It's okay to walk away and just, and I had a lot of series of discussion with my pastor, with people around, but ultimately it was when the deciding factor for me was I was literally falling ill all the time. It was headache, it was this, it was one thing or the other. And I would never forget him. His name is Dr. Hatosha. Never forget that man. He literally ran all tests necessary, MRI, everything on me to try and figure out what could be going wrong with me. I was a shadow of myself. And then after all the test results had come out, he called me. I had an appointment with him and he called me and just said, "Oh, I've done all the tests and everything just to make sure we're not missing anything out and everything, and all the test results are okay." Now, and then he now said, he said it in Yoruba, he said, "Abi, my brother," which means, "I hope my brother." And he hadn't finished talking and the penny just dropped for me. And I said to myself, am I passing through some form of depression based on the reality of my marriage and me just trying to hold on and, try and fix what is broken or stay there because of the things surrounding us? What will people say? Stigmatization, and what all the things surrounding it, the loneliness, how would I move on, and all that stuff. And when the penny just dropped, obviously my children were still young then. I think I had a 3-year-old and a 8-year-old. Then there's a 5-year gap between them. And I said, if anything happened to me, what would happen? My children will now be left in the care of a stepmom that would be mean to them and everything. So at that point, I just had a brain reset and like, I can let go of the marriage. I want to be alive. I want to be there for my children. It's okay. And I think it was when I accepted and the realization of what could be if I stayed and what could after I left. Everything just fell into place and I was okay to just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept, for a very long time, I kept two passport photographs in my purse, the before and the after.
Right.
And I tell you, it was miles apart.
Mm.
The before was a sad, lonely, drawn look of a pitiable lady.
Mm.
And after was free, okay,
Mm-hmm.
happy to
Mm-hmm.
move on with life
Mm-hmm.
lady. And that kept me in check for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I wanted to start saying, oh, why should I should have stayed in, and I just take the picture out and I look at my blessings, my children,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm
Well
okay with
done.
it.
Well
Yeah.
done. I think one of the things that maybe people don't realize is that it takes a whole lot of courage actually to
Yeah.
walk out
Yeah.
of a marriage. You
Yeah.
know, like both of you, I decided that I didn't want to
Yeah.
continue, and for many many reasons, and I was desperately unhappy. Um, and like you said, I lived in England, so I didn't feel that pressure of, the stigmatization because people are much
Yeah.
more, open there. And I had the support of my family. But I did have a couple of people say, stay for the child, stay, Um, and I remember my cousin saying to me at the time, Pamela, you have one child now. If you have another child, it will be more difficult, and you would think that this what you're going through now is like a honeymoon period. And I remember having an aha moment at that point and saying, you know what, I got married late, what is considered late in this country. I got married at 34, a day before my 35th birthday, so I was 37. And I looked at my life and I thought ahead, and I thought to myself, how would my life be in 10 years time, if I am so desperately unhappy right now
Yeah.
and I stuck with this because I'm scared of what people are going to say, or and I just had, that gave me the courage
Yeah.
to just move forward. And you know the emotional toil it takes on your not just your self-esteem, but like you said, physically. I remember that period was when I developed a thyroid issue and blood pressure issue,
So many things
so
crop
many
up.
things because of the stress that your body is having to navigate and
Yeah.
carry. It's actually quite heavy. And so just to see both all of us move on from that and heal from that is very, very encouraging. What were the financial considerations, especially for you,
Oh,
Shola, because you had, how many children did you have at the
two,
time? So,
two.
what were the special financial considerations going through a divorce that you had
Okay.
to think about?
So for me, then, when I realized the marriage was not going to work again, even though we had the initial family involvement, our parents coming together, trying to talk about it, everybody, and then we just realized that was not going to happen. Then I just said to myself, at that time, my ex-husband was on posting in Lagos then. And we had maybe about a year or two
Mm-hmm.
to the end of the posting. So obviously, because of his job and what have you, I couldn't walk away. So I stayed, and we lived. We had an understanding. We lived okay. We got over any issues that we had. But then I said to myself, obviously, when he was going back to England,
Mm-hmm.
I was not going to go back. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and part of the process of trying to see if we can move on was what's going to happen when we do go back to England. And there was nothing. So I just said to myself, I'm not going back to England with him. And I would stay on in Nigeria. And part of the things I considered was one, having a job, right?
Mm.
And having to start prepping. My children were used to certain lifestyle. Then they were in Little London, even though they were in
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria. Then
Mm-hmm.
they had everything at their disposal. We didn't know anything about NEPA not being present. We had ACs on, and so many things I had literally had to think about. And one of the fearful thing for me was I was literally pulling them out of their comfort zone
Mm.
because of my own need or not being able to work at my marriage and pulling them into that initial discomfort with me. So I prepped ahead. I start buying 6 months clothes ahead for them. A year, I start buying. Anytime I traveled, I would stock up the pantry. I was literally, you know, I wanted to give myself 6 months to a year gap of not feeling the brunt of me not being in a relationship and everything. And obviously I saved, you know. And the fact that the job was there, I made calculations. Would I be able to do this? Would I be able to pay the school fees? Would I be able to, So I planned ahead. I literally didn't walk out of the marriage in anger or whatever. I had time to prep myself. So there was a bit of a soft landing for me, so I didn't really feel the brunt like other people would have, like their bags was thrown out or things where, so I had time to prep, knowing going forward, this was not going to happen. So I was able to go
That's
through that. Yeah.
Did you have any financial considerations?
No, really, no. I didn't have any children with him, and I was only with him for 3 months. But then my personality is such that even if I did have children, once I've made up my mind about something, I will suffer through it. I would have
Yeah.
left anyway.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, because I think that's a big consideration for women, isn't it? You
Yeah.
find that, my chats with people, there are women who are unhappy, but they stay because of financial considerations. And I often say it's, this is for me anyway, it's much more unhealthy to stay because the kids look at that
Yeah.
and then you model that for them. It's not necessarily a healthy thing. And I was very fortunate that my family was very supportive, and I had my daughter was 18 months at the time. She's 18 years old now, but when I left, she was 18 months, and I had literally had to pivot and change my career path. Living in England is a little bit different from here, where you guys have all the support.
Support,
There it
yeah.
was me. I was the cook. I was the cleaner.
Nanny.
I was the nanny. I was the driver, and I literally thought to myself, okay, what do I do with my life now? I was working in the city, and I had to literally decide to give up my job, go on benefits. You would understand this, so that I could have time with my daughter, because I didn't want to leave her with nannies and not see
that
her
early
at
age,
all.
yeah.
And I don't regret it. So my career halted for a very long time so that I could be there for her. So at least she had one parent, because her dad was back and forth between Nigeria and England. So she had one parent that she had with her all the time. I didn't want to leave her in the hand of strangers. And so that financial consideration, I went from earning an income to literally not earning anything
Depending.
and depending on my benefits that came in. And then that actually propelled me to start a business of my own. So, there was a silver lining at the end of that. But yeah, that's it. The financial considerations are a real thing, aren't they? Co-parenting, how was it for you? What were the challenges?
My ex is a reasonable person, and I would say I'm a reasonable person as well. And I think between ourselves, we sort of like manage it. So if I needed anything done, I would send a message to him and like, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, and and he's sort of like, or when my daughter got older, I would just like, can you tell your dad you need this done, and and most times she says, oh no, you need you're the only daughter, so go to him. He needs to take responsibility, just ask him. If he says no, come back, but it's not from you not wanting to get him involved in it and everything. Yeah, he's quite reasonable, so
That's
between
good.
us, we managed it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think in my situation, and I really do want to speak to the viewers here, I think it's important that you allow your children to see their parents.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that mom who was like the angry mother who would not allow my daughter
Yeah.
to see her dad,
Yeah.
because I thought if anything happened to me today, it's the family that
That's
are going
right.
to, take care of her. So, I made sure that I took my daughter to her grandparents when they were in town. Her other side of the family was involved in her life, her auntie, and when her dad came into town, he saw her. So And I think that's healthy for the child.
It's
That
very important. Very,
exactly,
very important.
yeah,
And also, based on what you've just said, I think parents, regardless of the differences amongst themselves, they should not project it on the children. They should
exactly.
not speak ill of each other to the children. You know, keep your
Exactly.
business, and let them have that relationship with
Absolutely.
both parents. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And
But
it's
that might depend on the circumstances as well.
that's true.
I think
That's
we need
true.
to include that in the narrative.
Yes, of course, of course. Yes, yes. Obviously, there are circumstances where that is not possible.
yeah.
But in terms of where it is possible, do not let bitterness
Yeah.
get in the way of
No.
your child having a relationship
It
with
cannot be offensive.
their
Yeah.
father or their mother.
Yeah.
I think what I find now that my daughter's an adult is actually easier because she just has her own relationship with her dad, and they get on well, and she's able to, communicate directly, which makes it easier as the years have gone
Yeah.
by. So we're going to take a quick break now, and we'll come back and continue this amazing conversation with Shola and Ajobi. Be right back. Welcome back to Real Talk with Pam. I'm here with Ajobi and Shola, and we've been talking about life after divorce in all its ramifications. So I wanted to just continue that conversation about co-parenting. And I know that one of the things that you were saying, actually, which is really important, is about making sure that sometimes we allow our own bitterness to stop that communication with the parent, the other parent, and how long term it can be actually damaging. So, it's really important to make sure that we need all the help that we can get, if it means you going counseling or, talking through the issues so that your child can have a relationship with the father or the mother. And I think it's also really important to harness communication, because obviously some divorces are really, really acrimonious.
Yeah.
And, so we're not here to make it seem like it's all honky dory and it's easy. So in that situation, it's really important to find ways to communicate. I know that for me, there was a time where it was difficult to speak with my ex, but I would go through his sister, who he was really close to, and I was close to make sure that, my daughter got everything that she needed. Because at the end of the day, it's really about, if there is a child in that relationship,
Yeah.
it's about the child, making sure that that child's need comes first. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And especially if you have a child with that person, it's lifelong. You're not ever going to have a relationship with that without your ex in the picture, because of the child that you shared, or children that you shared together. So it's just really important to make sure that there's always a communication line open. Luckily for me, I'm at a stage now that if I need to communicate with my ex, I can do it. But my daughter's 18, so she can do that herself as well. Right, so we're going to go into something much more, I guess, positive. Dating after divorce. How has it been for you?
Okay. So, because I was traumatized
Right.
by this 3 month um, stint in marriage, I I came I sabotaged relationships basically. I When a guy came up to me, I would I went through a lot of emotions. So I was blue hot and cold, thinking, what does he want? Today I'm interested and, feeling very positive. I've met this nice guy. And I'll tell my sister, for example, oh, I just met someone. And she'd be like, oh, wow, really, really, tell me about it. And then I start telling her about it. And then suddenly she goes, Ajobi, please don't break my heart. So I'm like, how is it your heart that is breaking? I'm the one. No, because 1 minute you'd say, oh, I met someone, you're excited, you get me all riled up, and I'm excited too. And then 2 days later, you're like, oh, that guy, I blocked him. Oh, I'm not, no, no, he's gone, thank God. Thank God, another one will come. and I was doing that for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
So a guy would come. I remember one guy said to my sister once, "Why won't you just let me love her?" And I didn't realize that I was not only was I traumatized, I was afraid of marriage.
Right.
It was my mom who picked it up once, on my birthday. Usually I'd celebrate my birthdays and then I'd have a lot of all these could have been um, guys come to my house. And my mom, so after one of my birthdays, my mom was like, "You mean you can't find one of these guys? None of these guys can actually, can you get in a relationship with one of them?" And I'd be like, "Mommy, they all have some comma, is a comma. They all have a comma." And then she'd be like, "Oh, then this particular day," she was like, "I know what your problem is. You're afraid."
Hmm.
I got angry. I was upset. How can I be afraid? It's been how many years? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. And, I was obsessed with her. How can you say I'm afraid? But why was I that upset if I wasn't afraid, really? And I was blowing hot and cold a lot. Today I'm on the phone talking to this guy who sounds really, really good. The next day when he calls, I'm like, "What does he want?"
Right.
And I won't answer the phone. And I was doing that a lot. Did that if I could have married the year I got divorced,
Wow.
maybe 2 times.
Wow.
But for some reason, I just knew, especially if it took me the first 5 years to realize, what, I'm not there yet. If I
Yeah.
married, there was this guy who came up to him and was like, he went to meet my pastor's wife. This was in the UK. Went to meet my pastor's wife. "Oh, I want to marry her. So, I really, please, like," I said to him, I said, "If I married you now, I will destroy you."
Wow.
And destroy you in the sense that I knew I was not there emotionally. I would have killed him. So for me, I sabotaged relationships for 17 years. 17 years doing blowing hot and cold. In fact, when I did meet my now husband, I did it again.
Wow.
It was just that he was a bit more
Resilience.
consistent, persistent, and I started blowing hot and cold with him too. And suddenly one day, when he asked me to date him, I I got to, I don't know, for some reason this particular relationship was different. I don't know why. Maybe because they had God in it. And when he came and he asked me to date him, he was on the phone. So I'm like, "I'll speak to you later." And so I dropped the phone. And then I got up, sat down, sat down. I began to pace up and down this. So I'm like, "He didn't ask you to marry you. He just said he wanted a relationship. Like, why are you acting like this?" I was hot and cold. I was acting very weird. I had like an out of body. And I didn't call him. And then the following day he calls and says, "Oh, you said you'd call me back and everything." So I'm like, "Okay, I think it occurred to me in that day that my God, I'm afraid.
Right.
I'm actually afraid to marry again." And this is me. I'll tell everyone, "Oh, I'm ready." I think Shola and I even talk about it. "Oh, I'm ready to come in. Oh, I'm ready for marriage." I was in there for 17 years. "Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready." And then when someone comes close, I'm like, "What does he want?" You
Right.
know. But for this one, it was different. He was persistent. He was consistent. I think I needed someone who was consistent. And then my sister again was like, "Nope, this time I'm not letting you do what you do.
Right.
This is it." So when he then eventually called and he was like, "That you didn't call back and everything," I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just that. It's just that. It's just that. It's just that." I kept saying, "It's just that." He was like, "It's just like what?" I just broke down
Wow.
crying because it occurred to me that I had been harboring fear for 17 years and I didn't even know it.
But
I
you
was
overcame
afraid
it.
of marriage. Yes.
Amazing.
And I didn't know it. But then that helped because we then prayed about it and then I began to feel better. But then it took me a while to say yes. When he asked for us to get married, I think I was just afraid. I felt trapped in my first marriage. And I never wanted that. For me, every time I thought about marriage, it was like, "Oh, I don't want that. I don't want to ever feel trapped like that again." But when he came, and I think he was praying as well, and he was consistent and whatever. Suddenly, I kept fleecing God. There's something in Christianity called fleecing God, where you're constantly asking, "Oh, if he's the one, let him show up at 7. If he's the one, let this bucket be moved by the wind. If he's the one, and I kept doing that until finally God spoke to me the way He normally does, and then I knew, oh, and then I had peace, and then we got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I'll come back to you and ask you about some of the differences between your old marriage and
Okay.
now. So, Shola, how's it been for you, the dating scene?
It's been it's been up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Ajobi said, when you come out of a divorce or when you separate or come out of a relationship with someone, I think the first thing people ought to do is heal.
Mm-hmm.
You need to heal from that, whatever made you come out of that relationship, because if you don't completely heal and you rush into another relationship, you're taking your baggage with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Ajobi said it's that if she had married a guy, he would have been damaged because
Mm-hmm.
she's bringing her own
That's
and
right.
literally probably just would have thrown it at the guy and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So I think the first thing anybody should do is heal. So it's taken me longer time to get over the process of not being in a relationship, because that comes with a lot of things. The loneliness is there. Um, then you become independent, and I think for a lot of us, when you get that independence, it's hard for you to actually let go because you're not answerable to
Mm-hmm.
someone.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can cook when you want to cook. You can decide not to cook.
Mm-hmm.
You can, so that it's you have to be careful,
Mm-hmm.
you know, heal and find a guy that would respect you, that you have common grounds, and move on with it.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Oh,
it's been
waiting for it.
no drum roll yet. No trouble yet. Maybe my standards are a bit too high now. I don't know, because to be honest, I don't know why it hasn't clicked yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you date a guy, I've okay. Can I be real?
Absolutely. It's called where authenticity meets conversation.
Okay. My friends always say they don't know why I attract older men. Probably
Right?
because of my caring and nurturing nature. So I've ended up attracting older men,
Mm-hmm.
some married,
Mm-hmm.
some way older than 20, 25 years older than
Some
that.
way older than you would like.
Exactly. So and then I've attracted younger guys that I'm about 5 or 4 years older. And the Nigerian girl in me can't get into that. There was a really nice guy that I met that was maybe about 3 years, and he had never been married.
Mm-hmm.
And the only son in a Yoruba setting with
Right.
about three sisters, no children, and me, a divorced, two children,
Mm,
older, and you now want to present and say you want to marry?
right.
I have a daughter and I have a son. The Nigerian thing in me, if someone came to me, or my son came and brought, it would just be at first, the ladies in this town, you didn't find any young, whatever. It's this
Right.
old woman.
Right.
And that's part of the insensitive nature
Mm,
that divorced women go through as well.
yeah.
Especially if you have children, you're older, or you're at a certain age, people would still pick on you. And
Mm,
I think we sell ourselves short by also keying into their thought process and thinking, what would people do, which we always still relate to.
mm-hmm.
Like, how would people view me if I went with this person? How would, and that for me, I've had a bit of that issue. What would people say? But now I've said to myself, I'm not going to live my life based on what people would say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to live my life. The only people I'm answerable to is to God
Mm-hmm.
and my children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once God is okay with it in terms of the what he expects, and then my children are okay with it, at the end of the day, I want to be happy. I deserve to be happy. And I've nurtured the children up to a stage whereby I think I can let go and now focus on my own life.
Sure.
It's been about them, making sure they go through school, making sure they're there. But now it's okay for me to have that freedom. It's okay for me to find love. So I'm looking for a young, not necessarily
Shameless
young,
plug. Shameless plug. Go for it.
late 50s, early 60s. That is determined that I love traveling. So if you're a traveler, I would love to travel the world. So I've got 2 children, maybe 2 children. It's okay. That's fine. We could we could negotiate, and yeah. So I'm looking for fun.
Sure.
I don't want to be bogged down with family pressures and whatnot. I want to enjoy myself.
That's
So I
right.
want to be with a man that is emotionally available,
Big one.
big one, and must have some change.
No romance without finance.
Yes.
Let's go there. Let's
Yeah.
go there.
Okay, yeah. So I'm working hard. So, yeah,
That's
we
it.
need the finances as well to be able to do
Absolutely.
certain things we need to do.
Absolutely. I think for me, I think the dating thing, because I sort of separated from my ex when my daughter was 18 months. She was very young. So I didn't even have, dating was not even in my radar at all. It was like, I need to take care of this child. And for many years, 10, I didn't even think about it. Literally did not. And so fast forward, I'm in my 50s now because I sort of got divorced when I was 37. Now I'm 53, and I'm not actively looking, but like you said, especially now being back in Nigeria, there is, I wouldn't say, for me, I'm very much Europeanized in my thinking, so I don't really care what people
Anybody
think
says,
about
yeah.
me, to be honest with you. But I know that there is a certain stigma that comes with when you're a divorced woman. And then also, our options are very small.
Yeah.
It's either, you are dating somebody who is a widower, or you're dating a divorcee,
Yeah.
or you're dating a married man, and that's not my scene. So those options are very small.
Limited, yeah.
But I am in a situation now. Yeah, I'm open for a relationship, but being a 53-year-old woman who's confident, knows what she wants, I say I have a very low tolerance for, excuse my language, BS.
Yes.
You understand? So don't come to me if you're not ready, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I remember saying to somebody who is sort of likes me right now, but is emotionally unavailable.
Unavailable.
And I said to the person, I'm sorry, I can't date Casper the ghost,
No.
because you're there and then you're not there. What is it that you want? So, and then also I do have a lot of 30-something-year-olds hitting on me at the moment.
I have that too.
Which is very flattering.
It is.
And
I'm telling you.
I
I
sort
find
of
this annoying.
I sort of did sort of date one of them.
You did.
Yeah.
How was it?
Good, but at that stage, I'm 53. This person is in their 30s. I'm not having any more kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a situation. If you want to have kids, then it's not going to work. So that's what sort of
Yeah.
made that not viable.
Yeah.
But if they had kids and they were ready, I'm like, hey, let's go for it. But I think yeah. So in terms of dating, like Shola, I'm open. Okay, but don't come to me if you don't have finances, or
Yeah,
because
so
look at this. You need to be able to take care of this. Thank you very much.
The other thing I wanted to say in talking about dating, if you've been divorced for quite some time, was the sex.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's something we don't really talk about. But the truth is, mature singles long to have sex.
Absolutely.
You know,
And hence the 30
and then when
something
you're
year
Christian, it's
olds.
even worse.
That's
When
all
you're
I'm going to
Christian, it's even
say.
worse. You know, so if you happen to find yourself in this situation where you're divorced, you're longing to have sex,
Right.
well, as a Christian, you'd have to pray. I remember I still say to my sister, I want to have sex now. And she'd be like, just tell God. Just tell God. It helps.
Yes.
It helps. I just felt the need to throw that in. I don't know
No,
why.
but let's be real. We're being real.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Also being a Christian woman, yeah. So for a very long time, I did not. But
Cobwebs.
we're flesh and blood, and you do make mistakes. And yeah, and I went there because like it was like 7, 8, 9 years,
You don't forget whether you're female or not.
my dear. So, but that's for another show. We're
Yeah.
gonna go there in
Yeah.
another show. But thank you for being really open about this. So, finally, let's talk about what has helped you heal. I think very important when you go through something like a divorce, it's very important to be introspective because it's not all about the other person. Sometimes you say, if this person was not this, I'll still be married. And it's the blame game. Everybody it takes two people to make a relationship work. So you have to be introspective and think, okay, what could I have done differently? You can only control your own, and I think red flags is really big. It's important to recognize red flags early, for me anyway. I think for me right now, I recognize it more because when I first got divorced, I blamed myself a lot, and I had to forgive myself, saying, why was I so naive? But also, sometimes God shows us these flags, but then we
Tend to ignore.
or we say, "Oh, that person's going to be different," and you know. So, for me, the red flags for me now is emotional
Yeah.
unavailability. I think when you meet someone you like, it's always everybody's marketing themselves. And it's very important to date that person for long enough to see their true colors come out, right? Because you can only be marketing yourself for so long. You're true. So it's really important to recognize red flags. So for me, it's emotional unavailability, or, just thinking that I don't want anyone trying to fit me into their life. If you like somebody, you
Should be
have to.
fusion.
Exactly. So red flags are important. What was it for you that eventually made you remarry and recognize those red flags?
This is a very important aspect of this conversation. I think, first of all, the first thing I'd like to say, I'd like to address people who maybe have been divorced and are believing God to marry again. The first thing is, don't be afraid. I think a lot of women are scared to stand their ground, or to afraid to, just because we evolve as women. There's going to get to a point where you know that this is what I want, and if I don't get it, I'm not afraid to go it alone. And that's the truth. This is the one thing I really want to impress upon us. Do not be afraid to jump into another relationship and jump into another relationship. Wait for what it is you want. And the first thing is to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, you don't know what you want, really. And that's the truth. Especially as you get older. I want you know yourself first. What is it I want? What works for me? What are my love languages? What is it I'm about? What do I need a partner for? Do I want support? Do I want is it encouragement I need? What is it you want? And what can a spouse do for me? So I think that's the first thing in knowing yourself. Then red flags, it's an inexhaustible list.
Sure.
For me, and then it depends on who you are as a person once you know yourself. For me, I couldn't be with someone who was emotionally unavailable. That's impossible. I couldn't be with someone who wasn't consistent. I needed consistency. If my husband wasn't consistent, we would never have married. I needed someone who was consistent. I needed someone who was going to push it. Actually, I had 4 prayer points when I was believing God for marriage again. All 4 things, I wasn't looking for frivolous things because I'd been in a bad situation. I'd been in a bad relationship. So now I wanted to be real. I wanted to be as realistic as possible. I asked for 4 things. I wanted someone who was spiritually higher than I am. I wanted someone who had been married themselves, who had probably gone through divorce as well. And why? I wanted him to be someone who would place the same type of premium I placed on marriage, you know, who would place that same premium on it, knowing that I'm in now and this is it. So, and third thing, I wanted someone who, the minute he saw me, he knew I was the one. He wasn't going to play any games. He was just going to come for me with everything he had. My fourth one, can't remember that now, but and I got it. I got it. I didn't ask for anything. I wasn't asking for money. I wasn't asking for looks, even though my husband is very good looking. Okay, I wanted someone. My fourth one was I wanted someone who was at least 10 years older than me because I'm mature. I'm an old soul. And I got all these in my husband. And then his personality was a perfect fit for me.
Sure.
In terms of, we have our issues. We're a couple, but then he was a perfect fit for me in terms of his temperament and, just the type. I feel like now this was the person God ordained for me because of the way he makes me feel and the way he treats me. So my first thing is do not be afraid. Know yourself. So once you know yourself, when the wrong person comes, you know that's the wrong person.
Yeah.
That would be a red flag. So it's a broad, I can't give you one thing. But know yourself and have maybe a small realistic list.
Sure.
So that when he comes, he's ticked at least 3 of my 4.
Yeah.
And then you can go with it. And then above all, pray. Pray. Marriage requires prayer. I'm looking at the camera now because for me, this is an essential part of marriage. Nobody is perfect. You won't get a perfect person, but you need to pray for the right person for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And on top of what red flags are, noticing red flags, I think you need to decide what is a deal breaker for you. Absolutely. For me, a deal breaker is infidelity. That's a deal breaker for me. So people need to know, like you said, I think a lot of, in the day of social media and what you see on TV and the romanticized relationships, people think that relationships are easy. They're not easy. They're hard work. And I think that one of the things that if I got married again, that I would love for me and my husband to do would be to date each other in marriage. I remember, I'll share this quickly, but I remember one of my really good friends, she's Swiss, and Valerie, and she lives in Switzerland. So I took my daughter to see her ages ago now, over 10 years, 2013. And I remember she's a stay-at-home mom. She had 4 kids, beautiful kids. And so I was like, Valerie, what are you doing today? She's like, oh, Roy is coming home and we're having a date tonight. And they literally, she diarizes their date time, diarizes when they're going to have sex. And I'm like, ooh. But she says that's what works for them because he's so busy that if they didn't do that, they would grow apart. You know what I mean? And I think that it's really important that in marriage, I think in this situation I see in Nigeria, a lot of guys don't date their wives. Need to keep dating to keep that marriage thing going. You know. So Shola, what are your red flags now when you're looking in a relationship?
Right. Some of the red flags for me, or which has actually also stopped me from moving forward with a guy, is communication. Communication is very key to me. We need to be able to communicate because I think with my ex-husband, there was a bit of miscommunication there. We didn't communicate a lot. So that one, I'm very big on that. Disrespectful behavior from a man, I can't stand that. You need to respect me and I'll respect you as well. It's a two-way street on that. I hate a guy that criticizes, trying to pull me down. I never do anything right. I can never do, no. That is red flag for me. Once you start, you can correct. You can, constructively. You can say, oh, I find the way you did this was a bit whatever. Maybe you could, I would understand. But if you keep picking and anything I do, you bring it down, there's a red. I think you want to control me. That's a form of control for me. I don't know about others. Those are the major ones for me. But I think I could overlook some. But for me, it's not being consistent with your time, always making excuse why we can't meet, why we can you're not emotionally available. It's either you're in another relationship or you're not into me, or so it's either you're in or out.
Out.
I
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to be giving 100% of myself, I require pretty much the same from you as well. I'm a very loving person. I go in like that. But if I don't get that from you, I don't want to waste 4 or 5 years in a
That's right.
relationship that's not going to go. And I
Anyway,
think also very important, when you start dating, I think you need to be clear about where you want to go. I'm in my 50s now. I don't want to waste time. The time I have with me is so precious to me. I want to invest all my emotion where it's going to be appreciated. I
that's
don't want
right.
to waste it. I don't want to waste it. So I think when you meet someone, it's there's nothing wrong in setting boundaries or
Absolutely.
being clear about what you want. Do you want a casual relationship or do you want a serious relationship? This is what I want. Is that what you want? If it's not what you want, there's no emotions are not too tied in. So everybody could easily just say, nice meeting you, and we
Exactly.
all walk away and wait for the next person to come along. But I don't want anybody wasting my time. I don't want to waste anybody's time. Whatever I have, know it's going to be genuine. I'm going to be bringing love undiluted. Uh, but love does not sustain a relationship alone, But I'm going to be bringing years of experience and what have you into the relationship. So there's so much more. So the red flags for me are the ones I've actually stated. Don't be disrespectful to me. No.
You didn't talk about infidelity.
I think that's a
I
given.
think
That should
everybody.
be a given.
I think everybody. That's a
It's not a red
no,
flag for a
no.
lot
It's
of
true.
people
It's
in
not a red
Nigeria.
flag in Nigeria.
It's not a red flag for a lot of
And
people in Nigeria.
having said that, I
Would
said,
you forgive a man? Would I forgive a man if he had an affair? Maybe.
listen, I would try, but
It will be hard.
it would be hard if, especially if that person that hasn't changed the behavior.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Or they
Because
don't see it as anything.
right, and again, that's for another show. We're gonna talk it because it's a big hole. But one of the things, and I'm gonna look into the camera and say, for us women, especially in Nigeria, we need to have self-respect. I think that sometimes I know I said, oh, no romance without finance. I meant for my age, I don't want to be paying a man's way. I want him to take care of me as well. But I think that sometimes, a lot of times, that we don't get respect from men is because they know we're just in it for the money.
Yeah.
And a lot of us Nigerian women, we don't have self-worth. We go into a relationship for money and the wrong reasons, and we have to. And so when men meet women who have standards, where they're like, okay, yeah, you have money, but that's not going to solve my issue. You need to respect me. You need to be emotionally available, and you give them these caveats. They can't handle it.
Yes.
And so I think that we do need to change our perspective,
narrative, yeah.
the narrative. We don't do ourselves any favor. You cannot just be with a man because he buys you a G-Wagon or a Louis Vuitton bag. Seriously. And like you said, a lot of women date married men because for them it's not a red flag, it's not an issue. To each their own. I'm not going to be holier than thou and say that's their issue. But I think for those of us who want real relationships, where we're calling each other to a standard,
Yeah.
I think it's important to know what your red flags are. It's important to know what your deal breakers are. Ladies, we could go on and on. It's a topic that cannot be exhausted. I just want to say, divorce is a real thing. There's so many people who are going through so many things in their marriages. I do want to impress upon you, we're not here to say get divorced. What we're here to say is talk about it, get a support system, seek counseling if you are thinking about getting divorced. I think it's very, very important. None of us made that decision lightly. I certainly didn't make it lightly. And so it's very important to seek help and counseling if you're thinking about going that route. Okay, so Ajobi, tell me, what are some of the things that post-divorce you have, done as a result of, getting yourself back, your self-esteem? What are some of the things that you look and think, wow, I'm proud of that?
Okay. By God's grace, I started a business, and it thrived, doing well.
What kind of
It helps.
business?
I do personalized clothing.
Okay.
I sell personalized clothing, filler figures. It's, well, let me not be cocky and say it's very well known in Lagos. And then I formed this group. It's called Come Chop Chat. We call it CCC. It's a group where women from all walks of life come together in an informal setting. We eat, and then we talk about issues. It was born out of the fact that it occurred to me that many times women don't talk. We're going through issues, and we don't talk about them. And of course, you can't blame us sometimes because you don't know who to talk to. You're worried that people would share and all that. But then when we've been doing this for about almost 15 years now, and then we started it to get pretty intense, pretty quickly sometimes, and it's helped a lot of people. I also became a marriage counselor. People call
Amazing.
me, either for some reason I think this is my calling in a way. So I'm somewhere around it anyway, because people just fluctuate towards me. People who are divorced, people who are going through a divorce or planning to go through, who are not happy in their marriages, they call me, and people refer people to me. I'm not an advocate for divorce. I need to quickly say this. I believe in marriage, the institution of marriage. I love being married. But, I think sometimes we're beaten down because we want out. We want out of this relationship. We took an oath, yes. We swore before God and all that. But then, like Shola said earlier, God doesn't hate us. He hates divorce. And like I always say, just like any other sin, if I fell into sin, the sin of divorce, I can ask God for forgiveness. And I just think that sometimes people need to be, I think we're hard on divorcees. I think we need to be a bit more sensitive. And I've noticed, especially let me not go there. But I think people are hard on you. You may not have gone through a divorce, but you'd have a child who probably would go through it, and then you'd find out that even I judged people who went through divorce in the past. I think we need to be a bit more accepting. Like Pamela said, abroad it's easier to say, "Oh, I'm a divorcee," but here
Seems
people
to be
really
taboo.
beat people down for
Down.
it. And you can't even talk about people. Women are shielding their husbands from you because they think you must be promiscuous if you went through a divorce. But that is not true of all of us. I was the virgin when I got married the first time. So I think people just need to be a bit more sensitive. And if you're interested in joining our CCC, it's a very close group because, of course, we share very deep matters and personal issues. If you're interested in joining, you can hit me up on ajobibrown ajobibrown24 at gmail.com,
Yes.
and we'll talk a bit more. Thank you.
And we will leave your details
Yeah.
on the platform when it, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I went back to school after COVID. I got another degree. Obviously, when I was at my workplace for about 16 and a half years, and I was going to be moved to Abuja. So I gave up the job because I had literally just started my business, Shola's Kitchen. And it's just like wanting to abandon a baby, and I opted to stay with my baby,
Right.
and where I love it. It's very dear to me because I love entertaining. I love food. I am so much into food. So that's where my passion is. And obviously, because it's something new, It's a new business. I knew nothing about business. So I went back to get a degree. And I just, probably 2 months ago, or last month, I came out with a 2-1 BA, Business Management and Strategy. Yeah. So I'm quite proud of myself. I give myself a pat
And the
on the
brain
back.
cells actually
It's not that bad.
withstood
No. I'm telling you.
the menopausal brain cells.
If you have to do something, I'm sure you just like this needs to be done because it's adult education after all.
Absolutely,
Who are you
yes.
going to tell that? Adult education, you came out with a fail. Where your children are looking at you are like, mom, well done, good job. I'm like, yeah, God help me, But yeah, I'm quite proud of myself.
Well done.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you guys
And
too.
many more things.
Oh yes, your books.
I'm a published author, sorry, of 2 books. Fantastic books. They're all both on Amazon. The first one is, they're novels, by the way, and they've got fantastic, excellent reviews. Everyone who read them thought they were really, really good. They blessed us in the area of topics such as this. The first one is called The Loin Connection by Ajobi Brown. And the second one is called Echoes from the Past by Ajobi Brown.
Awesome.
Please do good to look into them. And if you want copies, you can reach me out on the same email.
Awesome. I think, when us as human beings, there's this saying that you don't know how strong a woman is until you put her in hot water. A woman's like a tea bag. You don't know how strong she is until you put her in hot water. And I find that, women, we go through so much, and adversity, can and oftentimes brings
Brings
out
out
just
the
the
best.
best
Yeah.
in us. And I think for me,
Totally
just
agree.
after years of the trauma and not having self-confidence and just seeing myself where I am now, I'm a completely different human being. And just basically, also I have an 18-year-old right now, so I'm looking forward to being an empty nester because she's going to university next year, and I find I'll have even more time to
yeah.
do the things that I possibly in the past have
not
put
have,
to the side because I wanted to make sure that my daughter was okay. And to the grace of God, she's an awesome kid. So thank you, women, for this candid conversation. We will probably have a part 2 of it.
Yeah, I think we need a part 2.
Yes, and thank you so much, Ajobi.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.